Well, weren't there many surprises this week in Rugby League? Welcome, guys, to another brand new episode of League Chat with the Stat. Appreciate you joining me again for another week. A great round of Rugby League that we had once again just this last weekend. Happy Easter to everyone that celebrates Easter as well. Guys, a great round of Rugby League once again. So many entertaining games from the whole weekend, starting from Thursday all the way through to Monday, and to end Monday. The way it did was unbelievable, but we'll get straight into it, guys. Appreciate you joining me on another episode. Let's go through the NRL ladder. As you can see behind me, the Panthers are currently still undefeated, coming first on 12 points. You've got the Storm second on 10, and then you've got Sharks, Eels, Roosters, and Manly Sea Eagles on 8 points from third to sixth. And then finishing up the top 8 are the Cowboys and the Rabbitohs on 6 points. Going to the bottom half of the 8, the Warriors are on 6 points in ninth. And then the following teams are the Titans, Knights, Raiders, Dragons, and Broncos are on 4 points. And then the last two places are the Tigers finally get their first win of the season and overtake the Bulldogs, who are now sitting at last. How wonderful is that? Now, appreciate you again joining me on the episode. Cowboys 18 defeating the Raiders 12 in the nation's capital. This is a game that I thought was a tale of two halves. Obviously, Raiders started really well. They scored in the third minute. That try to Tom Starling, which I spoke about last week, the Cowboys' defense, which has just been diabolical. They were really poor in certain aspects of defense, the Cowboys, especially in that first half. The Raiders weren't good enough to capitalize and to extend the lead in that first half. I thought they were pretty poor in some areas as well, but they got out to a 12-0 halftime lead. They defended pretty well, but in attack, they just looked a little bit unorganized and a little bit sketchy. But in the second half, you watch the game and then you see the Cowboys just out of nowhere just break through the Raiders a few times. They score a few easy tries towards the back end of the game, and then they get the victory over the Raiders. The Raiders becoming the faders once again. Another poor performance from them. I believe there is pressure starting to be applied on Ricky Stewart now. He's been there for about 7-8 years. His time is looking to potentially be up at some point. They're starting to run. I feel like the Raiders are going to be running a bit impatient at the moment with just how things are going. Obviously, there are a few injuries. They are missing their main 7 in Jamal Fogarty. But to go to the nation's capital, which is once a fortress for them, and not being able to get the win, especially being up 12-0, they've given themselves a name tag of the faders once again. So a disappointing result for the Raiders in a game that really could have been won. But the Cowboys, again, in the second half, just made it count where it mattered most, and they got the biscuits at the end. I thought the most impressive player across the whole weekend, probably Jason Taumalolo, played 71 minutes, so a massive increase to his 55 to 58 minutes he's been getting weekly. 27 runs, 255 metres, 114 post-contact metres, an offload, 3 tackle breaks, and 29 tackles, and a massive, massive effort from Taumalolo. We know exactly what he can bring, and we just know that as long as he continues to punch out these performances, and the longer he is on the field, the more impact he will have in that side. And I thought the Raiders boys, Josh Papali, 16 runs, 159 metres, 77 post-contact metres, 2 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, and 26 tackles. Big performance from him. And Tapane also having some strong games in the last few weeks. Tapane has had a pretty good start to the season. 15 runs, 153 metres, 74 post-contact metres, 2 tackle breaks, and 41 tackles. The Raiders have to be better. They've got to be better in attack and be more disciplined in defense and stop playing 40 minutes of football. And even the Cowboys as well. I mean, to not execute any of your chances in the first half, to come back and win, it's pretty plausible, but you can't be playing 40-minute games. These are 80-minute games. And I feel like those two teams weren't the only two teams in the comp, especially this round, who only had 40-minute spells in their game. The Rabbitohs 36 defeated the Bulldogs 16 on a Good Friday clash. Now, not the best performance from the Bunnies, if I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to take every biasness I can out of my love for the Dogs and just call it how it is. In that the Rabbitohs were under the pump for the first 25 minutes. Now, the reason they won that game was because of the ill discipline from Jeremy Marshall-King that allowed that sin bin to happen. So because of that sin bin, they scored 4 tries in 14 minutes. Damien Cook has the best game of the year so far. He scored a hat-trick of tries. Cody Walker seemed to look a little bit more comfortable. But talk that they're back, talk that they're ready to go and they're the best half in the league or the best hooker in the league is extremely, extremely inaccurate. They put in a solid performance against an understrength Bulldog side who had 12 men for that 10-minute period. and lost a few to injuries as well that game. So they're not back. Cook has one good game all year. He's not the best hooker in the league. Walker finally gives a try assist, so it's good to see him actually doing his job. But these aren't things that appeal to me, that make me think that they're back and they're ready to go. So I thought that was pretty disappointing to see that, a lot of that from the media saying that they're back and they're ready to go and they've kicked off their season. It kicked off 6 weeks ago. But for the Bulldogs, I thought the first 25 were really strong. We had them on the back foot. We got up to an early lead. That Kyle Flanagan cut out to that Brent Naden try. And then that sin bin happens because we were too ill-disciplined in defense and gave away too many penalties. I don't think it was the right call, but to go ahead and concede 4 tries in 14 minutes, that was where the game was lost. So Bulldogs have this thing about it where they can start pretty well and then they just drop off, or they'll score the first try and then they'll just have to struggle to maintain that. They struggle to maintain that, and then or they'll be down by 2-3 tries and then they'll try to fight back. There's no middle ground, but I thought the Dogs started well. If they kept that up for 80 minutes, I reckon we would have troubled the Rabbitohs and potentially even got on the win. But that sin bin really killed their momentum. And it was very disappointing to see them drop that game, which I genuinely believe was another winnable game. Liam Knight, I thought was really impressive in 40 minutes that he played. 21 runs, 202 metres, 106 post-contact metres, 3 tackle breaks, offload, and 16 tackles in a 40-minute spell. Liam Knight's obviously had his issues with concussion, so it's been really good to see him punch out some big numbers and play some good football. Now, the Panthers 40 defeated the Broncos 12. And I didn't expect the Broncos to come out in that first half and play some really good football. I thought they were really controlled. I thought they had 100% completion for about 35 minutes in that half. Adam Reynolds' kicking game was on point, was so good. And then the Panthers really just picked it up in the second half. Panthers seemed to struggle a little bit in that first half. They were on the back foot a little bit. They did create tries from nothing. They were up 12-6. I was really impressed with the Broncos, though. I thought they started really well, and I was really surprised considering that Payne Haas and Herbie Farnworth weren't playing. So that was something that really opened my eyes there and something that showed that Broncos have what it takes to really compete against these really good teams. The turning point of that game were the sin bins to Keenan Palasia and Dylan Edwards. Now, I don't agree with the sin bins. Open palm is ridiculous. But like I've always mentioned on these podcasts, and I've always mentioned everywhere I go and everyone I speak to, that the reason that these are sin binnable offences is because of the fact that where there are no more punch-ons in the game. And because there are no more punch-ons in the game and no one fighting, we get to see this open hand garbage. We see people get sin binned for a lot worse things or punished for a lot dumber things. Really, really stupid. So 2 open arm palms, very dumb, weren't required, both go to the bin, but it's the experience of the Panthers side that lifts. And I think it's super important to understand that the Broncos at all times need as many players as they can on that field. They can't afford a sin bin. Because they showed on Friday night that because of that sin bin, and while Panthers were down 12 men as well, Broncos lacked that experience to carry on for that 10 minutes. Panthers ran in 2 tries. And then they just took the game away. Tessie New goes down with that hamstring injury. Silvan Cobbo has a bit of a nightmare at fullback. And then it just goes sour for the Broncos. And they go on to concede 40 points that night. It really didn't seem like it for the first 50 to 55 minutes. But unfortunately, that sin bin really turned the game on its head for the Broncos. And even for the Panthers as well. The Panthers just started to click and start to play more free-flowing football. Continued to remain undefeated as they start the season. But that try by Taylor May, the way Cleary kicked it, and then Taylor May caught it on the edge here as it was going out, reminded me of David Mead's try against the Sharks when he was playing for the Titans. As the ball was going out, he just kind of picked it up, swooped it, and kept going. So pretty crazy stuff. Just in the talent that they have there at the Panthers, and a really good play from Taylor May as well. And Cleary is just getting better and better as he's from his comeback from that shoulder surgery as well. The players that stood out to me. Scott Sorensen, what a blinder of a game he had. 16 runs, 223 metres, a try, 2 line breaks, 5 tackle breaks, and 25 tackles. Really good performance for me. His individual try as well was fantastic. Got on that left full step and then just darted through untouched at the line. Fisher Harris, once again, 18 runs, 200 metres, 84 post-contact metres, 2 tackle breaks, and 30 tackles. Very good performance from him. And I thought Keenan Palasia was probably Brisbane's best, even though he was sin binned. 18 runs, 186 metres, and 32 tackles. That was a really, really good performance from him. And a special mention to Corey Jensen, who punched out 160 meters as well in his start. But look, the Broncos were lacking that bit of go forward. They really missed Payne Haas, especially in that second half. He would have been really vital to get them off their line and get him in good attacking position as well. But look, another win for the Panthers. They remain undefeated and they still sit first on the NRL ladder. The Seagulls 26 defeated the Titans 18. And this is like the Cowboys and the Raiders game, where it was just another game with a tale of two halves. Rabbitohs. The Seagulls came out, played a blind over the first half. They really had the Titans on the back foot. The Titans weren't the worst in the first half, but mainly just capitalized on a lot of the opportunities. The Titans at moments couldn't hold on to the ball, or they just couldn't execute some of those plays as well as they would have wanted to. But in the first half, the Seagulls dominated, and then the second half, the Titans dominated, and the Seagulls were poor, while the Titans were poor in the first half. But the Titans, this is becoming an ongoing trend where they only just continue to play 40 minutes of football. They seem to have done it the previous week as well, where they were trying to come back in the previous week as well, which was disappointing, seeing as though in the game against Para, where Para got off to like 24-0 and then they came and scored 20 points in the second half. I mean, you can't be doing that in the NRL. It's the second week in a row that they've tried to go and only play 40 minutes of footy, which is really costing them at the moment. But these are games where you're meant to be playing out those 80 minutes, and unfortunately, because they're not doing that, it's really affecting their cohesion in the side. It's affecting their consistency to be able to punch out a full performance, and it's starting to obviously take a toll on the coaching staff as well. Whether it's a fitness issue or whether it's just they don't seem to get it right one half, but the other half they get it right, they need to learn how to punch that out for the entire 80 minutes. I thought Haumole Olakau'atu was great. 2 tries, 12 runs, 121 meters, 5 tackle breaks, and 29 tackles. He looked like he could have scored 5 tries on that night. The way he was so threatening every time he had the ball. Got held up twice as well, and then almost scored a try, but the ball went dead as well. So he played really well. Tina Fa'asuamaleaui, 17 runs, 164 meters, a try, line break, 3 tackle breaks, 26 tackles, and a 55-minute performance from him. So the captain leading by example, and really good to see him helping the ground staff pack up at the end of that game, even though they lost. So it was really good to see that from Big Tino, doing his best to lead by example. But look, Seagulls will be better for that game, I'm sure, even though they played at home and were solid, but they need to learn how to punch out 80 minutes as well as the Titans. The Storm 34 defeated the Sharks 18. I had this as the game of the round for me up until the Tigers game, which we'll get into a bit later, but it was such a great game of footy. There were moments of brilliance from Ryan Pappenhausen, Harry Grant, and Cameron Munster that really made the difference for me. Cameron Munster has been playing some really, really good football. He's transformed himself in the offseason. He's really applied himself in this season so far and into training, into he's getting the little things right. Staying off the booze has been a great thing for him. And he's been playing some great football. That play he made where he scored that try, where he made the line break, stepped a few plays and went through was just magic from him, which is, you can understand why there's about 7-8 clubs that really want Cameron Munster. Now the Sharks, look, they completed at 84%. So they didn't have a shocking completion rate. They only made 5 errors in the game. Storm made about 10, 11. But it was just a couple of defensive lapses that really costed. There was a couple of defensive lapses there where you thought they could really kind of tighten up their defense, but the likes of Pappenhausen got through, Munster got through, and because there were too many holes in defense, it really affected the Sharks in trying to cover up those holes. And because of that, unfortunately, it conceded to them scoring a few more tries than they would have liked. But this is a game for the Sharks where they really needed to see where they were at. I don't think they're a terrible side. I don't look at this and say, oh, that's their season done. I look at this as they can build off it and improve in a massive way, and really just try to nail some of those efforts at their line, at the opposition line. But look, to be fair as well, the only thing that they actually struggled with was that Toby Waterfall was the only forward that ran over 100 meters. Talakai had 182 meters, 220 meters went to Ronaldo Mulatado, who scored some of their tries as well. So, the backs are doing a lot of the work, but it's the forwards that really need to aim up. And they didn't aim up in that game, in a game where Melbourne had the Bromwich brothers missing due to COVID and a couple of others not available for the weekend. So a bit disappointing from the forward pack of the Sharks. They needed to step up and be better. Losing Dale Finucane didn't help. Obviously, he went down, I believe it was a concussion issue, and Brendan Hamlin-Uele tore his pec. So they were down on men, but it's just still, from what I'd seen, for me, they could have been played a bit better and really aimed up in the forwards. Cam Munster, the pick for me for the Storm, 16 runs, 183 metres, a try assist, 2 line breaks, 4 tackle breaks, an offload, and 11 tackles. And CC for Talakai getting it done in that centre position, making it his home for the time being. 15 runs, 182 metres, a try, 2 try assists, a line break, 3 line break assists, 8 tackle breaks, an offload, and 12 tackles. A really dominated performance from Talakai, and like I said, Militado gets a shout out as well for another phenomenal performance from him. The Roosters 22 defeated the Warriors 14. Look, I genuinely think that the Roosters were very lucky to win this game. You know, Warriors coming off a 3-game win streak, brought in a lot of confidence into that game, and they played well for about 50-odd minutes. But the Roosters just getting it done, scraping through once again, not playing the football that we're used to seeing them play, with the combination still a work in progress. But they walk away out of this game with a win, which is the most exciting thing for them. But the Warriors, look, I think they'll take a lot of confidence out of that. This is probably the first time where I've looked at the Warriors side and not had a go at how bad they were, or they had too many errors, or what was shocking about them. But they will learn from this. Roosters are a better team than the Warriors. But the Warriors did play good for about 60-odd minutes, but there was just that patch in that 20-minute patch where the Roosters really dominated at different parts of the game. Now, in the 10th minute, when Adam Fanua-Blake made that break up the middle, and Tedesco, had that tackle. When he got penalized, he should have been binned. I thought it was a really poor call from the refs that Tedesco did not get binned for that incident, and it might not have affected Warriors then, but it was a very poor call. And I genuinely thought that Tedesco should have been binned for that. But the one thing that really caught my eye, and the one thing I just blew my mind, Reece Walsh, in that 65th minute, where there was nothing going on in the last tackle, he kind of made a break, and then on the fly, kicked to the corner for Damien Zelezniak, to score. A 2-post slipped, and Zelezniak just went through the side down the touchline and scored that try. But the way he kicked it on the fly and it landed straight to Tennis Lesniak was absolutely freakish from Reece Walsh. So that was the most entertaining part for me. But look, it was just another game where I thought Adam Fanua-Blake had a monster game and just carried the forward pack on his shoulders. 16 runs, 146 metres, a line break, 6 tackle breaks, and 29 tackles. So it was a standout for me. And I thought in this game for the Roosters, I thought Joey Manu was really quiet. 6 runs, 46 metres. Didn't really get to involve himself much. Would have been good for him to really involve himself in that game, considering they were down a little bit as well, and the game wasn't really run until about 10 or so minutes to go. So a bit more from him would have been good in that game. But like I said, Tedesco had dominated a bit of that for Manu to not be able to do enough, which was a bit underwhelming for him. But I'm sure they'll be able to realise how they'll be able to use both in such a dynamic side, and giving them both the opportunity to go up and down the field as much as they need to. The Dragons 21 defeated the Knights 16. Look, I thought this game was really entertaining. There were so many good tries from both sides. There were moments in the Dragons' defense that had so many gaping holes that allowed the Knights to really break through. That try in the first half that Ponga set up for Tuala, I thought was fantastic from Ponga. And then that one in the second half where Badman Best had that break down the sideline, there was a massive gap there and he just went straight through it. So there were a couple of defensive lapses there from the Dragons that they really need to clean up. But the Dragons did enough to hold the Knights out, 21-16. They completed at 85%, first time they've completed that high in a while. And they made 6 errors only. So it was really good to see from the Dragons really appreciating more of the ball in that game. But the problem was they missed 50 tackles. And they got to clean that up. When Parramatta have won their games, I've said the same thing. They've missed 50, 40 tackles. They need to clean up the defense. So the Dragons need to do the same thing here. I feel like the Knights have gone backwards since their early form run. Adam Clune hasn't been playing as well as he has in the first few weeks, considering of his knee injury. And he was a late scratching from the weekend's game with Crossland coming into the side. But the Knights need to go back to basics and go back to what was really working for them and just to be patient in attack. But with a hampered Adam Clune and a Phoenix Crossland that isn't as experienced in the halves, will really test the Knights and will be costly for them. But they'll be waiting another 3 to 4 weeks to get Anthony Milford back as he has signed with the club. And he should be a number 6 as soon as he walks into that side. Now, but with the Knights, continuing on the Knights, obviously they, like I said, they need to get back to what was working for them, but making 13 mistakes, like, I mean, you can't be doing that in a game of footy, especially against the Dragons, down in Wollongong, where the game was played as well. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done from the Knights to really go back and find what was working for them early on in the first few rounds. Now, the Zach Lomax incident, I just don't understand. I get where people are coming from in the sense where, so for those that don't recall what happened, it was a brilliant try from the Dragons. Fia guy put the ball in for Hunt, who was running down the sideline, put in a grubber kick inside. Now, Frizzell goes to get the ball, but as he goes to get the ball bounces a bit odd. It bounces off his head and then back, and then Bird comes flying in and then scores the try. Now, Frizzell kicks the ball out of frustration, knowing that he could have cleaned that up. And then Lomax, like a smart aleck, jumps on his back. Well, Frizzell, they used to be teammates back in the day. He thought he wouldn't think too much about it, but to have jumped on his back when he wasn't really his, he's not part of the team, and to kind of rub it in his face, Frizzell snapped, and it led to a bit of a push and shove. I don't think it was the most appropriate thing. I get getting under their skin, and I kind of like both sides of it. Probably wasn't the best thing for Lomax to do, considering he did miss the next few kicks. And why he did slot that field goal, really had an off game since that moment. What happened after the game was when Clemmer had approached him and was like really trying to get the point across, like, to never do it again, and he almost caused another ball over at full time. And then there's obviously constant talk that, Lomax reached out to Frizzell didn't want a bar of it, and all this rubbish. I don't think it was necessarily needed, but I'm not terribly against what happened. But I can understand both parties and both points of frustration with it as well. Blake Laurie was great. 20 runs, 182 metres, 65 post-contact metres, a tackle break, and 25 tackles. And I thought DeBellin, Hunt, Fairguy, Sua, I thought they all played really well in that game. Still not liking Jack Bird at 6 and Mbai at 1. I still need to think they need to bring back Amoni and Sloan into the side, but I think he's just been falling on deaf ears at the moment. The Tigers 21, defeated the Eagles 20. Tigers get their first win of the season, and this was an unreal game. At Bankwest Stadium, the home of Parramatta, Easter Monday showdown, the Tigers go down with a point to prove. They almost lost that game at moments, but they did enough to hold on. That field goal from Hastings with 4 seconds to go. You could see the emotion in the Tigers squad. They've been under so much pressure for the first 5-6 weeks of the comp. Constant scrutiny around Luke Brooks. Constant talk about Michael Maguire. Talk about how the players don't care. Talk about how what they're doing in training doesn't seem to be replicated on the field. They start to move forward, go backwards. So this win was so important. It freed up Luke Brooks to play a natural game for him where he played pretty well. And he got Jackson Hastings to run the show, which I'm not against. I don't look at it, Luke Brooks coming down from 7 as the biggest demotion. He's still playing first grade and he's still playing the 6 jersey. But there were a couple of moments that, where I thought the Tigers really, needed that win. First off, Alex Twal, in the first 6 or so weeks, has only missed 2 tackles out of 200 that he's made. But apart from that, just his defense and his intent to defend his line and to make sure that he's doing what he can to ensure it doesn't miss a tackle is the best. It's so good to see that from a forward, to see so much care in cleaning up his own backyard. Now, Dane Laurie's tackle on Clint Gutherson in that first half, where it put Gutherson straight back into the dead ball line, I thought was a really big moment for the Tigers. Now, moving to Parramatta, they weren't at their best. They weren't nowhere near the level that they can play at. They can play at 63% against the Tigers, which is really, really poor. They made 15 errors. They played the Tigers game. Missed quite a few tackles. 37 they missed tackles. They dropped the ball 15 times. They only compared at 63%, which is really poor considering that Eagles are always averaging high up in the 70s and even early 80s in terms of the completion rate. But there was just a moment there where a couple of weeks ago when Para beat Storm, they were very lucky to have won that because there was a bit of miscommunication between Marnie and Moses when they come to kick the field goal. And the same thing happened there where Moses should have the ball should have gone to Moses to attempt another field goal, and he just went another direction. So they've really got to clean that up in dire moments like that. I thought they would have done that a few weeks ago, but obviously I don't think they expected to come out to a Tigers outfit that was so hungry to go and willing to fight and claw for that victory. So very good to see that the Tigers fought, dug deep against the Parasite, who have been playing pretty good football. But for the Tigers to get their first win of the season, Madge to be the happiest in the coach's box I've seen him, was a massive relief. And I'm not even a Tigers fan, but it was just good to see them get a win, really enjoy it, soak it up, considering of under how much pressure and scrutiny they've been under, and get that victory. So Alex Toll, like I mentioned, had 18 runs, 166 meters, 61 post-contact meters, a line break, 5 tackle breaks, 46 tackles. It is time that man finally gets himself a try. Now, moving on to our Supercoach segment, I finished the week on 1,282. Very solid week. I won all my leagues. Vice Captain Nathan Cleary got me 151. So I obviously did the loop, and he benefited in a very good score. My trades for this week, Josh King, I feel like has peaked with a break-even of 49. I'm happy to let him go now. Has made me 270-odd K. I've traded him to just a cheapy forward, Fainu from Sea Eagles. Don't think he'll get a run in at any point, but just needed enough on the bench. And then I've traded Viliami Velia from the Warriors to Katoni Stags. With Katoni Stags break-even of minus 30 or 35 or something along those lines. Coming up against a weak Bulldog side this week, I think there's a lot of money to be made. And he would definitely be a suitable and definitely a genuine upgradable option to like a Papali'i or a Dave Fafita in the coming weeks. News around the NRL world. Moving on to that. Now, Milford, like I mentioned last week, has signed with the Knights, but he's been official. He's completed the education courses that he's needed to complete, and he won't be able to play till round 11, which the Newcastle have accepted, and the NRL have moved on with that. Now, the Parramatta Eagles are keen on signing Herbie Farnworth. They're another club that have joined the race to get Herbie Farnworth. The Panthers have been linked to Tigers forward Luke Garner as a potential replacement for Viliami Kikau, who goes to the Bulldogs next year. Mitch Barnett gets released from the Newcastle Knights a year early and signs a 3-year deal with the New Zealand Warriors, which sets him up for the next few years, and will hopefully, with everything COVID hopefully gone, as I'm based in New Zealand. The Bulldogs have 12 out due to injuries and COVID. So due to a dinner that happened on Monday night, I think it was, or Tuesday night, a couple of players copped COVID from that dinner, unfortunately. And what has happened now is that the Dogs have had to name an understrength side, which we will get to shortly. Christian Saylor has signed with Logan Magpies for the rest of the season, which is the junior club for the Brisbane Broncos. And Callum Ponga has re-signed a 5-year, $5 million deal with the Newcastle Knights. Again, don't think he's worth the money. Don't think he's playing anywhere near that potential. And the contract situation was really messy. The way it was all played out was very poor. His father getting involved when his father is pretty much a nobody was the most disappointing thing. But to finally have all the negotiations made very clear, to see that there were no more stupid clauses in the contract where he can negotiate a year into a 5-year deal. They're all wiped out. It's 5 years guaranteed, $5 million guaranteed, and that'll be the end of it in terms of Ponga's contract situation. Now, moving over to round 7, and the round coming up, got the Sharks coming up against the Sea Eagles. Cameron McInnes will start at lock, replacing Delphin Newcombe, who's out with concussion. Aidan Tolman comes to the starting side, with Royce Hunt moving to the bench, replacing Brendan Hamlin-Uele, who has torn his pec. Sione Katoa comes back to the side, pushing Moroni Harodi to the reserves, and Britton Nakora starts with Jack Williams moving to the bench. So a few changes there with a few outs and some big inclusions as well. For the Sea Eagles, Morgan Harper takes the spot of Tolutau Kula, who moves to the reserves. Taniela Paseka takes the spot of Josh Aloye, who's out with an AC joint issue in his shoulder. And Ethan Bullimore takes the spot of Sean Kepi, who's out with concussion. And Kurt DeLuey plays his first game of the season off the bench. The Sea Eagles have won 12 of the last 14 against the Sharks. Very tempted to go them, and I'm probably going to go with the Sea Eagles this game. I think they'll get the biscuits. With Sharks missing a few reinforcements there, I'm going to back the Sea Eagles to get the win this week. Broncos come up against the Bulldogs. For the Broncos, a few changes here. Payne Haas comes back to the starting side, moving Keenan Palacia to the bench. Herbie Farnworth will take the spot of Deloise Hota, who made his debut. Played his first game since 2014 last week, who goes back to the reserves. Tamari Martin comes back, plays his first game in a few years, which is really exciting to see. Coming back from a brain bleeding injury that had him retire a few years back. He would replace Tessie New, who's out for 10 weeks with a hamstring injury. Tyson Gamble will start at 6, moving Billy Walters to the bench. Corey Pay comes into the starting side to replace Jack Turpin, who's out with a shoulder issue or collarbone issue, but I believe he's been dropped. While Thomas Flegler comes back from suspension and replaces Ryan James in the squad. For the Bulldogs, it was dramas galore. Aaron Schropp replaces Braden Burns, who's out for 8 weeks with a hamstring injury. Corey Waddell comes back to the starting side, takes the spot of Chris Portolo, who's out with concussion. Brent Naden, Jake Averillo, and Avasi Manafarai have all been dropped out of the team due to to getting COVID. They've been replaced by Jacob Carraz, who moves into the centers. Jaden Okabor comes onto the wing, and Billy Tikrikas, who comes in at prop to make his debut, with Kiraz making the NRL debuts as well. So a lot of changes there for the Dogs. I'm gonna go Broncos this game. Broncos will get the biscuits at Suncorp, will bounce back with those players coming back. Payne Haas, Tom Flegler, and Herbie Farnworth. They'll be looking to have a field day. So Cowboys come up against the Titans. For the Cowboys, Griffin Neal returns from concussion, with Jordan McLean starting and Ruben Cobber moving to the bench, and Koleni Lumelu dropping out of the side. Titans are 1-17 this week. Probably going to go to the Titans this game. Just still not sure on the Cowboys and how they go at home. I'm going to go the Titans to win this one and should get it by about 12 points or so. Tigers come up against the Rabbitohs. Tigers 1-17. While the Rabbitohs, David Mawali takes the spot of Isaiah Tass, with Hame Sele moving to prop and Thomas Burgess coming off the bench. It's going to be a tough game. I don't see this being a smashing. If the Rabbitohs played any way they did last week, they are going to cop it. But I'm expecting them to take a bit of confidence from that game. So I'm going to go the Rabbitohs by 6 points. So sorry about that one, Tigers fans. Knights come up against the Eels. Adam Clune returns to the side, pushing Phoenix Crossan to the bench and Simi Sasagi to the reserves. While for the Eels, Junior Paulo replaces Oregon Kafusi, moves to the bench. Maratani Ukore is out with leg tightness, is replaced by Will Penasini in the centres, with Hayes Perham moving to the wing. And Jacob Arthur comes into the side, replacing Mitrain. Eels will bounce back, and I'm confident they'll get the victory on Sunday. The Panthers will come up against the Raiders. Panthers 1-17 for the 4th week in a row. Now for the Raiders, Jordan Rapana takes the spot of Charles Nickel Klokstad, who's moved to the bench, and Xavier Savage will be coming onto the wing, while Harry Rushton will make his debut. And Elliot Whitehead got into a bit of a training accident this week, so he'll be out as well, with his replacement yet to be named at this stage. But the Panthers, I'll go confidently, playing at home. They'll make a 7 on the trot. In the Anzac clash, Dragons come up against the Roosters. Dragons 1-17. Roosters, Paul Momorowski takes the spot of Kevin Nagama. And Siasiawa Takiaho will replace Daniel Fafita on the bench. And I think I'm going to go the Roosters this game. It's always a big clash between those two teams, and the outcome is never usually a smashing, but I'm going to go the Roosters by 8 points. And the last game of the round, Storm will come up against the Warriors. For Storm, Jesse and Kenny Bromwich are back in the side, pushing Brendan Smith and Trent Laura to the bench, with Chris Lewis and Alec McDonald dropping out of the side. For the Warriors, only a couple changes here. Matt Lodge comes back from a side strain, with Aaron Penne moving to the bench and Taniela Otukolo dropping out of the side. And I'm going to go Storm to win this game by 18 points. Thank you for joining me on another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Remember to like us on all our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So keep subscribing to our channel. Keep sharing it to your friends and family. And to anyone else that wants to jump on, you know where to get me, leaguechatwiththestat@gmail.com, or send me a DM. And we'll be able to tee something up for sure. But enjoy round 7, guys. It's going to be some fiery clashes. As we remember the Anzacs this weekend in the Anzac round. Always a time to reflect on what the many have done for us to allow us to have the freedoms that we have. So it's going to be an exciting round of rugby league. I know I'm really excited. But I appreciate your time again. Thank you for joining me. You have yourselves a great weekend and enjoy the games coming up this weekend. We'll see you same time next week. All the best, guys. Take care.